All right, we should be good to go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our very first pregame Facebook Live. I am here with Pete Doherty. I am Olivia Reiner, and we've got lots to talk about ahead of the Packers' very first preseason game of the season. Houston Packers right here at Lambeau Field, and we're outside today. It's a beautiful day, Pete. Why not?
It is. It's perfect. And in case anybody's wondering, it's Houston and the Packers, not the Houston Packers.
The Houston Packers.
Yes.
The Houston Packers. Houston Packers. There was a breath in between those two.
There was a breath there.
So, okay, I've got the handy-dandy phone here, and we're going to take your questions over on Facebook, assuming that everything is functioning properly. Let's see what we got. Yes, we are. We're functioning.
So big news, by the way, just a little while ago with the Packers signing.
Yeah, let's start with that.
Ibrahim Campbell. Is that how you say his first name?
Ibrahim, yes,
did I get that right?
Yes.
You and I were talking about this in the off season. I got to say, I would have bet reasonably strongly against him being ready to go at this point. But if they signed him, that's got to mean that he's ready to practice. They didn't sign him to just have him have to sit out a couple weeks or a few weeks. So I think we're thinking he might have had a surgery in maybe early December.
Yep.
So that's a pretty fast recovery from an ACL. Usually those guys are a lot closer to 1 year, and when guys get surgery late in the season, it's not at all uncommon for them to end up on PUP and staying there for the whole preseason, which means they missed the first 6 weeks of the regular season. So he had a fast recovery, and he's got a chance to make this team now.
Yeah, he does. And the Packers said goodbye to Corey Grant. He's only been with the team for a couple of weeks now for training camp, and right away, a running back out the door.
Yeah, thin position for him too, with running back with the injuries they've had there. So I guess I would have guessed against them not cutting a running back, but maybe they think Jones and Williams, or at least one of the two, will be ready to go next week.
Two Williamses. We'll see. Most likely one of those Williams tonight.
Yeah, Dexter Williams. I would have to think he'll get a fair amount of playing time.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Certainly with both Jamal and Aaron Jones out tonight, most likely. We don't have confirmation on that yet, but they were nursing hamstring injuries during training camp.
And Carson, he did not go on Monday or Tuesday, right?
No, he
or at least
did not.
On Tuesday, so that could be shaky. So, I would think Williams will get a lot of snaps. Maybe that's a sign that Carson actually might play tonight, although, when a guy doesn't practice 2 days before the game, it's fairly rare for him to play. But, when jobs are on the line like this, maybe he will be out there.
Just a couple of days ago, Trey Carson had a neck spasm. How long do you think it'll take for someone to get over that?
Oh, all that's the injuries like that, and hamstrings are the one, and back injuries are the ones that are the hardest to know. I think even for the medical staff, for how long a guy is going to be out, because I've talked with doctors about this, and the MRIs, while they show you a lot, they can't tell you everything, and so sometimes a guy will show up with a hamstring injury, and I've had a doctor tell me this, where it looks like, oh yeah, that's just like a few days or a week, and the guy can miss a month or 5 weeks because of it. So it's tough to know, but with the cut they made today, maybe he will be ready to go already.
If we get any injury reports, we will certainly let you guys know while we go. But why don't we dive into some of these questions? Mike says, Pete Doherty for president. Do you agree with Mike?
No, I don't think America wants or needs that.
Sharon says, hello from Vegas. Hello, Tammy. Hi, Pete. Hi, Joe. Kaipo is in Hawaii. Oh my goodness.
So how many hours difference is that? Is that probably at least 5 hours from here, right?
Let us know in the
Maybe
comments,
6.
Kaipo.
Yeah, let us know.
Let's start with Kevin. Kevin asks, will the Packers have any starters play tonight? Starters presumably for the regular season.
Oh, sure, I think so. I've got to assume Savage will play tonight. Now, he's just coming off missing the first basically week or so of camp, and they've really limited his snaps in practice. He just started doing team stuff recently, and so he wasn't going full time like the other starters were against the Texans. So I guess they'll get him out of there fairly quickly, but that's also those rookies who are going to start, they like to get them a fair amount of snaps in preseason games to get them ready. So Gary's not a starter, but he'll probably play a lot. But I would think Savage will play some. With Rodgers not playing, I'd say the smart money is, pretty iffy with Bakhtiari and Balaga. Maybe those guys would go one series. The veterans like that, Devontae Adams. If Bakhtiari and Balaga aren't going, I'd bet against Devontae Adams playing. But I would, I think I would guess a lot of the starters will play, at least a series.
Mm-hmm. Okay, something to certainly keep an eye on.
Yeah.
Something that I've been thinking about. We talked about it in our live stream last time that we were doing this with Ryan and I. Jason Spriggs, in that very moment that we were doing our live stream, was released from the Packers. He was not claimed, he wasn't released, he was waived by the Packers, but he was not claimed.
I use those terms interchangeably. Yeah, feel free to. I don't think anybody out there is going to get on you for that.
If you're very technical, I will watch my terminology.
Yeah.
However, Packers waived him, and now presumably Alex Light, not presumably, at least on the depth chart, which I understand is written by the PR staff.
Yeah.
On the depth chart, Alex Light is the second string left tackle. Should Packers fans expect to see Alex Light play today?
Yeah, I would think a lot, and that's a position if I'm the Packers, I'm really worried about that position because at right tackle you've got Bulaga, who's got an injury history, and he's missed a lot of games and been unable to finish a lot of games especially last season. So I'd be concerned about that because there's a good chance that their swing tackle is going to have to play some and maybe even a decent amount this season. And when they drafted Spriggs so many years ago, I think they would have figured by now he'd be starting and Bulaga wouldn't be on the roster anymore. But that one just didn't work out. I keep forgetting that this is you didn't make it to you weren't with the Press Gazette until after the preseason. So this is your first Facebook Live before a preseason game, your first preseason game.
Yes.
It's different than the regular season.
Mm-hmm. I'm learning that right now as we speak.
Yeah, it's all about evaluations, and winning and losing means absolutely nothing in these games.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, lots of questions surrounding who might be playing today. So, we're just going to be spitballing quite a bit. But Mike also wants to see Zadarius Smith play tonight. And how confident are you that he will see any playing time?
Ooh, that's one of those probably on the fence with all the money they invested in him. Wouldn't be surprised if he didn't play. If he does, I would bet a series. Preston Smith, remember he didn't finish practice Tuesday because of a back injury. He missed all the team stuff. Some spasms in his back, I think. I would bet he probably won't play with the money they invested in him. Mm-hmm. Adrian Amos, maybe they'd want those guys out there for a series just to see. Conceivably could be two, but it sounds like the second and third games are the ones where the regulars are going to get a little more playing time.
Mm-hmm. I'll just go through the list. If you are a frequent PackersNews.com reader, which hopefully you are, Tom Silverstein has a pretty good primer over there. Yeah. Not just pretty good, it's great. A great primer of the game over on our website, so make sure you check that out. But these are some of the Packers that are currently injured, at least as far as we know. Yeah. So Trevor Davis got injured in the first practice.
That was on Monday, yeah.
Yeah, against the Texans. So it's probably likely we're not going to see him unless he's...
Wouldn't think so, especially in the return game, because that's where guys really get hurt.
Mm-hmm. Jace Sternberger also was getting evaluated for a concussion. He also has a jaw injury after taking a hit from a Texans cornerback during practice.
Did they ever say whether he had a concussion? I don't think they actually said whether he did or did not.
So perhaps we'll find out if we see him on the field tonight.
Yeah, that's a guy I'm sure they wanted to get a lot of playing time in the preseason. So it's injuries like that are the ones that hurt in the preseason because that's this is where they get a chance to get a real good look at guys.
Mm-hmm. So Aaron Jones, hamstring injury. Jamal Williams has a hamstring injury as well. Jones technically has hamstring tightness.
Yeah, as I remember telling you this last week. Yeah, last year in camp, they said the same thing, hamstring tightness, and I think he ended up missing 3 weeks. So, like I said, the hamstring injuries, for one thing, are hard to tell. But yeah, I think it's probably beyond tightness if he's missed basically more than a week now, I think, or at least a week.
Right. Corey Linsley also missed practice last week with a biceps injury.
Yeah.
So expect to see Lucas Patrick, Justin McCray at backup center tonight. Do you have any guess as to who we might see first?
I don't, because they kept alternating in practice. I guess if you go by who's played more overall, it would be McCray. So maybe they'd go with the little more veteran guy or the guy who's had more snaps with them. But it's been pretty much interchangeable in the practices Linsley missed. So I don't have a real good guess.
Mm-hmm. Fadol Brown has been out all of camp with a calf injury. Preston Smith, as you mentioned, with the back injury. Josh Jackson has also been out for the entire camp with it says foot injury.
Another injury that's a guy who I'm sure they wanted to get a lot of snaps in the preseason, and and get a good long look at. I wonder if he had been healthy, whether he'd be the nickel guy or Tramon Williams. They drafted Jackson in the second round. By that second season, you're really looking and hoping that a guy like that is playing quite a bit for you. So, he's missed the bulk of camp, not time-wise, but practice-wise and length of practice and amount of practice. The bulk of camp is over now. The first 2 weeks is basically it.
Mm-hmm. So in his place, I'm sure we'll see lots of Tony Brown, who's been getting tons of first-team reps during training camp. We'll see lots of him, and he's been pretty solid.
Even in the last, I think it was in both practices against the Texans, for sure on Tuesday, up till then when they were in base with Jackson out, so there's only two corners out there, it was Alexander and Tramon Williams. But then at least on Tuesday, and it might have been Monday too, I can't remember now, it was Brown out there instead of Williams, and then Williams came in on the nickel. So they like what Brown has done, and he had the big interception on Deshaun Kaiser on family night.
Yes, he did. So let's get back to some of your questions here. Someone wants to know, Blake wants to know how the new running back Keith Ford looks. I don't think have we seen him? Has he been here?
No.
Most definitely will not. I mean, I don't want to say 100%, but he will likely not play tonight.
Pretty hard to believe that he would play tonight because he hasn't practiced yet.
Exactly. Okay. Oh, yes. Brian also raises the point. It is a big night for the kickers. Yes, it certainly is a big night for both Sam Ficken and Mason Crosby. Crosby came back to practice last week. And this week, honestly, I'm losing track of what the days are.
No, this is Groundhog Day, the first couple weeks of camp.
It is Thursday, apparently.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, but now I know.
Feels like Sunday, doesn't it?
It's just every day is a day that ends in Y.
So how do you think they'll do the kicking? I really don't know if they'll alternate or have one guy do the first half or second half, or give most of the kicks to Ficken because Crosby's been around, but Crosby hasn't done much work in camp, so maybe they want to get him out there in a game setting. I don't know. What do you think?
My money would be on they're going to ride Sam Ficken mostly just because he hasn't had much experience kicking in Lambeau.
Yeah.
He kicked in Lambeau on family night. Mason Crosby, as we all know, has just a little bit of experience kicking in Lambeau Field. But you're right. That being said, he hasn't been kicking all that much, at least in front of our eyes to witness it.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what they end up doing, but I am going to put my money on Ficken.
Okay. We'll keep track of all this stuff and evaluate you after the game.
Thank you. Yes, Ryan will hold me accountable. Let's see what we got here. Jason says, should Packers fans be concerned about Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams with all of the running backs being picked up on the waiver wire? It is a little concerning.
Yeah, I mean, I think I felt like I was very much in the minority in the offseason in thinking that running back should be a really high priority because Jones is by far their best runner. Williams is a good player and a guy you want on your team. He's a tough guy, good in the passing game, good blocker, okay runner, good runner between the tackles. But Jones is their guy he's dynamic with his hands on the ball. But as we all know, the injury history there is through 2 seasons. It's a big red flag. So they waited till the sixth round to draft a running back, Dexter Williams. I thought they'd do it higher if they didn't sign one in free agency. If I'm the Packers, I'm really concerned. Maybe not so much that Jones won't be ready for the regular season, but that he's got another injury. What was it, 3 MCLs in the first 13 months he was with the team. Missed most of camp last year with a hamstring. Finished both seasons, his 2 seasons on IR last year. I think it was because of the hamstring, I think.
If my memory is correct.
Yeah, I know for
Chicago
sure. The last 2 games he was on IR. If you're a Packers fan, because he's such an important part of the offense with the zone run game that they want, the outside zone. He's by far their best guy for it, and all the offense plays off that, the play action, the bootlegs, and all that. So that's. They're rolling the dice there with having one guy who's a lot better than the rest of them, and that guy's health is pretty shaky.
So while we're on the topic of running backs, Tommy asserts that the Packers should trade for, you could probably fill in the blank here, Melvin Gordon.
Yeah.
We've talked about this. Jim and I have talked about this on one of our post-practice Facebook Lives, and pretty much what he said was Packers don't have the money to do that.
Yeah, if they really wanted to, they could, but it's just, there are probably, I'd have to really think it through. There's probably 3 or 4 backs who are worth paying the huge money because they're every down backs. They're really good in the passing game, and they're that notch above as runners too. And a guy like Melvin Gordon is really good, and he wants to be paid like those guys, but he's not quite as good as those guys. So it's really tough to make that 10 or 12 or $13 million a year investment in him. Who did I see who got traded? Duke Johnson. I know I had forgotten that he was asking to be traded. Cleveland traded him to the Texans, as a matter of fact. And I'm going to try to find out. I'm a little curious if the Packers got involved with that too, because that would have been the kind of back. I think it cost him a 4 that could escalate to a 3 depending on how he does this season.
Okay.
Fairly steep price. It seems like teams see a real demarcation line for draft pick value from 4th round to 3rd. And even a 4th is pretty high, so maybe the Packers just didn't want to give up a pick that high, but I'm curious to know whether they got involved in that at all.
All right, well, Pete, do some digging
I will.
and report back to us. Lee asks, over under, Packers will 9 games. 9 games, over under, will the Packers win 9 games?
Yeah, that's right about where the line should be. No clue, so because they've gone 8-8 on the last 3 coaching changes, after Holmgren, and I covered them all. And Brett Favre was their quarterback, and he had already won all his MVPs by the time each of these changes happened, so he was really good. And they still only won 8-8 in each of those seasons. So I guess since I have no clue, I think that's probably the best guess.
Yeah, I would say.
That's why I said so. I guess that's under would be the answer.
Yeah,
then.
yeah, I'd say right about there. I saw a prediction from, I believe it was Sporting News. I think. Hopefully they don't come find me if I'm wrong. But they had the Packers winning 12 games this season.
Wow, that is a lot for a team
winning the NFC North.
That made a coaching change. Now, look, when you've got a future Hall of Famer at quarterback, to dismiss that and say no way is a little crazy, and they should be quite a bit better on defense, which could get them a game or 2 in there.
This is true.
But I certainly would not bet on 12-4.
Awesome. We'll take a few more of your questions here because we got to start getting ready soon. Brian also wants to know, why would the Packers cut a running back today of all positions when they're clearly lacking there at the moment?
Yeah, that does make me wonder if Carson might play. I guess also because they just picked up the running back yesterday, and even though he won't play tonight, presumably, he is on the roster and he'll be around next week. So maybe they thought they could get through tonight without any issues, and they have the fullbacks too, I guess. So. They must have known that they were going to cut this guy, and they just didn't think he was going to play much tonight.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's see. Mike wants to know how many long snappers are in camp. Just the one.
Yeah, just the one.
Just Hunter Bradley.
They've had. There's been a couple times when they've had 2. Then you got to watch every snap really carefully, and every one that's not laces up and right on the money, you take note of.
Well, a little less work for you, right,
Yep.
Pete? Let's see. Mike also wants to know, Mike is just firing the questions today. Will Dean Lowry be a consistent 3-down defensive end? Do you see him? I mean, they're paying him
they are.
the money to do that.
So on 3rd downs, unless it's fairly short, like if it's 3rd and 4 or 5 or more, I would guess he'd be out. And on 3rd downs, they'd be going with, they'll have 3 outside linebackers out there. They can bump Zadarius Smith inside. Rashawn Gary can play inside. Then they'd probably have Kenny Clark in there. So probably not a lot on 3rd downs unless it's 3rd and short. But Lowry is a good, solid player, and he'll be out there a lot, and he'll get a ton of snaps. By the end of the season, if he stays healthy, he'll be way up there in snaps, I would think.
All right. Different Mike says that the Packers are going to go 14-2.
Oh.
So that's very nice and optimistic.
That is optimistic.
But we will see. You know what? No games have been played, so we
never know. The
never know.
Rams had a huge turnaround when they made their coaching change a couple of years ago. McVay, I think that first year, won 10 or 11 games after they only won 3 or 4 the year before.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. I think we've covered just about everything. Don't you think? Is there anything else on your mind that you'd like to get off your chest? Things you're thinking about?
I don't think so. There's a lot to watch in these first couple preseason games. A lot on the offensive line. I was talking with Eric Bronchek, who we do the day after video review, so you'll be able to catch that tomorrow afternoon or evening. That'll be posted, and that's one of the things we'll be watching. He's especially going to watch his O-line and got guy like Oren Burks at inside linebacker, who looks like he's going to be a starter this year. Did he make a big jump? There's Savage and Gary. There's just in the backup quarterbacks. There's a lot to watch and see what happens.
Absolutely, and of course something else to keep an eye on: the 2-minute drill. Matt LaFleur was lamenting the Packers offense.
Yeah.
The last couple of practices, the 2-minute drill has not been where he wants it to be, and it'll be interesting to see how they handle the 2-minute drill tonight.
So were you down there? Because for people who weren't at the practice, so they had the Packers offense and Houston's defense at one end of the field and the opposite at the other end. And so on the day they ran 2-minute, I was watching the Packers defense, so I watched their 2-minute against Deshaun Watson and the other quarterbacks. Were you down at the offensive end?
I was, yeah.
So did they even get any first downs? It sounds like it was quite a struggle.
They did not move the chains very much.
Yeah.
It was pretty tough to watch.
Yeah, it didn't come close to scoring, right?
Nope. So it'll be interesting, especially because we're looking at most of the rookies tonight and to see how they're going to be handling the 2-minute offense.
Maybe that's why Aaron Rodgers doesn't like practicing against another team, because the 2-minute drill did not go well.
No, it didn't. Maybe we'll save that for another time, that conversation, because I know a lot of folks have been talking about the disagreement between Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur and the Texans joint practice ideology. We'll talk about that after practice next time we see you guys. How about that? Good?
Sounds good to me.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you're back over on our Facebook after the game, post-game. I'll be with Ryan Wood. So we're losing Pete, but Ryan will be here, and we will break down what we saw over at not the Houston Packers, but Houston versus Green Bay.
There we go.
Packers versus Texans, whatever you want to call it. We'll be breaking that down. Make sure you follow us over on social media as well. We'll be tweeting out lots of updates on the game throughout the night. And make sure you're checking out PackersNews.com for lots of stories after the game. Tom Silverstein has his live blog going tonight.
Yeah, and thanks to all the subscribers, because it does cost a lot of money to cover the team like we do. So, and that helps pay for it. So thanks to everybody who subscribes.
We don't thank you guys enough. We do appreciate it, and it allows us to do these things. It allows us to have the equipment, the camera that I'm talking to, and the live streaming equipment. It is all a part of it, and we love to bring you guys as much information, as much high quality information as we can. All right.